Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Got a quick video for you today, and actually most of it is going to be a video filmed by other people. Bob, who's a member of my channel, and Rex. You may recall Rex from King Rex Electric. He's been on my channel before. And what he did was he came to Houston, did some measurements on my breaker panel, my ground line, and also in my room to kind of see what my power situation was. And it was actually quite good. But as you've seen what he did at different places, one of my friend's house, and he offers this breaker panel similar to what I featured in a YouTube short to the Audio Ultra panel, the two companies that do it, Audio Ultra and the King Rex Electric. These dedicated sub panels that you could put in your room and have dedicated lines is definitely something I would elevate on your list of priorities, higher than certain other things that you want to deal with tweaks. Obviously, you want to get your speaker, DSP, room treatments, all of that higher priority. But when it comes to power delivery, you should not overlook certain things. But one thing you got to be careful about. There's so many people. You'll hear people ask questions on the forum. What should I do for power conditioner? What should I do for my power? And you will have a million knee-jerk opinions immediately. Just give your opinion. Oh, use batteries, use a regenerator, use XYZ power conditioner with LED lights and all, and a clear, all this ridiculous stuff. That's when you know these people really aren't very experienced at all, not worthy of your opinion. When you see people knee-jerk giving that kind of advice, because with power especially, the first thing that should come out of anybody's mouth before giving a recommendation is asking certain questions, because not one power delivery improvement thing applies to all. Certain things you may need nothing. Once you measure your power and your issues, you may need zero. And the quality of your power supply and all the gear that you have, you may have zero issues and nothing really, maybe other than whole house protection. Like I've got a Richard Gray whole house protection on my system in my house. I sleep better at night with that. It's basically a industrial level protection. But in terms of power improvements, whether you want to go batteries, regenerators, and all this other stuff, most of the time, they can bring just as many detriments as improvements. And on balance, what I've heard, most of the time, if you put them on a scale, you're going to end up with a lot of money, no improvements, and potentially worse results, because so much of these things that they sell are just adding extra resistance and more problems, especially with amplifiers, than they solve. So what you want to have is somebody that does a meticulous level of asking the questions. Well, do you have any issues with your power? And that's why I had Rex come out before I just get a isolation transformer, more stuff here. I wanted to see what was the real issue in my house. He's going to go through what was done over at his house and what works for him, which includes an isolation transformer and a sub-panel box. But even in this video, you should not just universally use that advice. You want to see what kind of issues you have. In my case, we were looking at my dedicated line to my room. I have routers, I have refrigerator, dimmer switches, all these things in the rest of my house. Nothing of that was impacting my dedicated line to my room. Now, once I plugged other gear in my room to that dedicated line and started powering up the amps and the computers, all these other things in my room, all of a sudden that dedicated line now showed the effects of everything plugged into it. And so one of the things that you'll see with these, especially power regenerators and all this stuff, batteries and all this, you will see them show noise coming in and then one leg out being okay. You won't see, at least I haven't seen it yet, the full bank of outlets plugged into the battery, regenerator, power conditioner, whatever it is, and then show that all of those are immune to each other. That's the trick. That's the key that you have to think about. Don't fall for these primitive, it works, it does this. You got to have a higher IQ when you see these kind of things and say, hey, what if all those banks are plugged into in the back of the outlet? Are they impacting each other? And in my case, that's what I found was the only thing that was impacting my line, other things plugged into my room. So it made sense to do a sub panel in my room. Now I have dedicated lines for my amps, digital equipment, everything. And what those measurements showed me is that when you have separate dedicated lines, that's a quasi power conditioner for you. I mean, it is immune to the routers, like I said, all the dimmer switches, all the things in my house, refrigerators, all the noisy equipment that people think causes problems, and they think their neighbors cause problems. Maybe, but have you proved that? Are you just assuming that's what's causing the problem? No, it's probably stuff in your room, if anything, that's causing any problems, or your imagination. But in any case, at least get some proof. This is where measurements pay a huge dividend to confirm what you suspect. Don't pretend like you know everything. Don't pretend that you know that it's your neighbors or something in your house. Get the proof. And then once you get the proof, then you know a better solution. So in some cases, like you're going to see in this video with Rex, he put in both a sub panel and an isolation transformer. And for his situation, it actually improved things. Would I recommend for everybody that same solution? No. Sometimes you don't need an isolation transformer. In my case, I've tried those before, and it added too much resistance and added a negative impact on my amps. But now when I do a separate sub panel, that didn't impact it. In fact, it improved the suddenness of the music. Is in terms of what benefits did I experience with my solution that worked for me. It was immediate in terms of the suddenness of the bass. And that makes kind of perfect sense because bass frequencies take the most power from your amps, and from your subwoofer is powering it. So if you improve the power delivery to your amps and your sub, that should improve audibly the bass, because that's what's drawing the most current to reproduce those frequencies. And what I noticed when I put in that sub panel is that everything, the word that immediately came to my head for audiophile jargon was everything was more sudden. The bass was just more sudden and real and powerful. And so again, because whatever else I was drawing on the lines, I have a home theater up here. That's another part of the equation. I had like 5 amps on this dedicated line. You think a dedicated line solves your problem? No, you might need 2, 3, or in my case, I just went full bore, sub panel, separate lines for almost everything. And so there are diminishing returns. It doesn't guarantee for everybody, but I think this video is parlays on what I did in my video series earlier when Rex came out to my house. He also went to 3MA. He went to another person's house. I'd go back and watch those videos if you can, because you're going to want to digest all of this stuff to understand what may work for you. This isn't a video to say, what I'm doing here is perfect for you. This may not work for you. I think it's the best option with the least amount of trade-offs, but maybe you need, like you're going to see in this video, isolation transformer and the dedicated sub panel. Maybe you need nothing. But again, this is the kind of advice you want to look for, is people that understand the nuances and are going to ask you those questions and maybe come out and do measurements. It's worth the time to understand all these things versus just knee-jerk spending money, thinking that whatever XYZ person said on the forum or other persons found work for them is going to work for you. Get out of that habit in the hobby. That is a minefield. So hopefully you'll enjoy this little video. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Rex is in my membership group. You can have access to him real time in the membership group, asking questions, and other people that use his stuff. So if you want to talk to Bob, Rex, myself, join the membership section. I've done a big charity event this month, Toys for Tots. Thank you for all the members. All the funds from YouTube this month went to buying Toys for Tots. So I'll have a YouTube short on that very shortly, if not already released, depending on when I release this. So thanks again, guys. Happy holidays, and I'll see you back here soon.
Okay, I'm Rex with King Rex Electric. As I was saying earlier, we wanted to perform a test to see how a stock Square D QO panel board compares to one of the NQ panel boards that I'm producing and sourcing all the components to make it an all copper panel. To go over how it used to be set up, there was a feeder coming out of here that went into my transformer and fed into this panel here. In order to really understand what the transformer is doing, I had another feeder coming out of here that came straight out of the panel, but routed all the way over to the panel and came directly into the panel. So I was able to turn off the transformer, take the feeder wires off from the transformer, and replace them with feeders directly from that panel. So I have then pulled that feeder directly from the panel. So this is no longer going through the isolation transformer. This is just directly from my main panel into this panel or this panel and treating them as sub panels. So I now have a feeder with a neutral, I have a feeder with a phase, I have a feeder with a ground. I took 2 circuits that were going up to my room. One of them's running the front end, one is running the amplifiers. So we did the same test between both panels. I had this set up into here first through the Square D QO industry standard, what load center that they're going to put in your house, aluminum ground bars, aluminum neutral bars, copper phase bar, aluminum lugs feeding into the top of it. We then went and switched over into the NQ panel board, which I have as copper ground bars, copper neutral bars, copper mechanical compression lugs at the top, and a copper bus down through here, copper fingers. This panel is just all copper. I know it looks a little ratty the way it's in here. This doesn't look like a professional installation, and it wasn't meant to look good. It was just a way to be able to sit the 2 panels next to each other, play them, and go upstairs to the listening room and see what we heard.
There's a big difference between, it's not subtle going from the all aluminum and then to that panel.
No, I was shocked.
Yeah, and that was as big as, to me, is when we put the Taurus.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost a similar thing too. There was definitely a quiet in the room. You just heard it was more quiet. And when we had the QO in, the first thing that I noticed is I was wanting to back the volume down. I was just kind of backing down a little bit and listening.
Semblance on everything.
Yeah, it was a little hashy, like when the cymbals and other instruments came in, it just got confused and you couldn't differentiate the different instruments really into play. I mean, you can, but there's definitely a smearing that's over the top of it. And a grainy edginess that when this went in, that went away.
Big difference.
Big difference. Yeah, it became much more, especially when the highs and the cymbals and some cracks of like snare came in, they were much more distinct, much more intelligible.
So here's what I'm saying. There's such a difference between that. And then I was going from like a value point of view. I know how much I spent to get my preamp that much of a difference. So now you're plugging all of your components into that. So now your preamp, now your amp, now your DAC, now your streamer. Add that up because it's gaining over all of that. And for me, that is just a value across the board. And let alone when you add in the Taurus transformer, that's like, it puts you ahead of the game right out of the gate. That's the real. I mean, that's
yeah. It was a sizable change.
The other thing too is I'm I keep going back over the years. How many times did I misjudge some product over this being an issue?
Oh my God. We noticed that when we were at Fremer's house. That was actually a really interesting occurrence. He had the Estelons in with his Dart Seal 468, and when Ed and I went out to dinner that night, we were, should I say, and I'm not going to say poo-pooing the speakers, but we're saying they were nothing special. And after the electrical got changed, it was like, oh my God, those speakers are fantastic. I mean, it was really dramatic.
Because what was the artist we were playing upstairs?
Liberty.
Liberty.
By,
we're going through the same track. It's different. All
yeah, we
the
did
way
some
around.
Willie Nelson too.
But you can see even like if you were going to be listening for 4 hours, 5 hours, that would add up between you wanting to cut it short,
Yeah.
or feeling tired, or I'm done listening to music, all because of the difference between that.
Yeah, it was just immediately more quiet. When you're in the room, it was just calm and quiet, and I found myself driving the volume up. When I had the little QO panel in, I immediately went up to it and started pushing the volume down. Immediately.
If you think about it too, when we were talking about the RM20 on my subs, what was the first thing I said that happened? As soon as I took the RM20 out, the volume went down. When the RM20 was in there, the volume went up. So
Yeah, it plays cleaner. That edginess isn't there, and it allows
so
you to
I
move
felt
it
the
up.
need to back it off. That has been the case with the panels and the Taurus.
Yeah, and that's why I push these large single output cores if you can.
Yeah.
If you can, because just it globally impacts the entire system.
I think that's why.
I can even get these too, which is kind of interesting. I can get these Taurus cores now here, and I can get a 12 kVA and a 14 kVA high output,
Yeah.
240 volt in, 240 volt out, which means I don't have to go over to this single phase $5,400 base price, which every one of these circuit breakers is $350. I can actually drive it into this panel, which is a 240 volt rated panel, because I'm using a core that's 240 in, 240 out with 120 to 140 amps, so 70 amps a side. I can drive it into here, and this panel base price is $2,200. Maybe it's 24. Actually, these lugs right here that I just scored, these mechanical lugs from Square D. It's $350 my cost just to get copper lugs from Square D that go up top, because otherwise, just so you know, otherwise, this is a pile of all the crap that comes out of these Square D panels. They're just worthless, and they got these aluminum lugs that look just the same, but they're aluminum and they're junk.
You know, another thing too. That's how many customers' house have you been to, and you went to evaluate some equipment, and then, oh, by the way, I got a hum, or oh, so you gotta get rid of that, and before you can.
You got to get rid of, yeah, the hum is different. If somebody's got a hum, they've either got equipment problems.
I've just heard stories where you've been, certain places, and it's just like, now you got to address that first before you can even evaluate the equipment.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable at my house. If I try anything, I'm narrowing it down to the equipment. There's power's quiet between the panel, the Taurus, the grain orient wire, the outlets.
Yeah, with Bob, I've taken Bob out of his regular panel, just like you'd see sitting over here, and he's come into a sub panel at his house, and then he's just using RM20s on the floor. And hey, I do love these big wall mounts if you can put a wall mount in, because then you can come over into some panel like this and you can have multiple distribution. You can have 20 or 30 circuits in the room, it doesn't matter. The RM20s are wonderful because the RM20s here, they're wonderful. They're dead quiet, but you got to be a little more focused with them. You go, okay, I'm going to drop one of these on the floor and I'm going to put my amplifiers into it. You drop another one on the floor and go, I'm going to put my subwoofers into it.
I do like, because I'm wishy-washy, I do like being able to move it if I need to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with the big big transformer,
Yeah.
I'm basically putting you 10 or 15 duplexes around the room. I mean, you've got everything globally covered.
Oh, these are nice. These are nice, portable.
They
look
do.
good.
They're great. They're $4,000 list price.
And they look good.
And you can plug it right into,
Yeah.
it right into, if you go and put one of these as a sub panel in your house,
Yeah.
like you had to run a ways and go to a room, you drop a sub panel of this, and then you're bringing your circuits up from that into an RM20
Yeah.
and you're wiring it properly, feeding it properly, it just sings.
But I mean, day one, get the power right. Get the power right.
Yeah. So it's been interesting. It was refreshing to go back and hit the basics again. Just where has it come? What's really happening is I've been working with, this is basically the foundational panel that I'm using now, but it took me a long time to get through Square D to find all the parts and pieces, because any other person who goes in and buys one of these and gets it and says, I'm getting a copper NQ panel board for you, this neutral bar, this crossbar that's going across here is going to be aluminum. The lugs that are all going onto it are all going to be aluminum. I have to then go out and source a neutral kit and get a copper neutral kit. But anybody else who goes and gets that, you're going to find that still the lugs that are on the top of it are aluminum and the neutral bars that are on the top of it are still aluminum. You can't get away. I have to go in, and some of it is 26-week lead time to get these neutral kits that have copper bars on them. These lug kits I have to buy special, and they take 14, 16, 18 weeks when I order them to get them in. So it takes a lot of time for me to source this equipment. And then, as I've said before, I'm breaking them apart. I mean, these pieces do come off pretty easy. You can access into what's going on in here, and I'm getting in there and I'm cleaning that. When it comes to me, it's pretty crunchy. It's got cutting oils and just oxidization. They just look kind of bad. And I spend probably 2-3 hours going through each one of these, just wash. It's probably even more than that. It's 4 or 5 hours going through these things, cleaning all this stuff down and getting all that gunk off of it and reassembling it and putting it together so it's as best it can possibly be.